This video will discuss chapter 8.7, Slope-Intercept Form. So this is a really important form of an equation for a line. And so this is the form. So it's y equals mx plus b. Keep in mind that x and y are just the coordinates of a point on the line. So it's like 3, 2 is on the line. So this would be 3 and this would be 2. Now x and y are typically part of the equation, but keep in mind what it is that they actually stand for. Right? What purpose do they serve in this equation? M is the slope. That's what we've been working on. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 is the formula to find the slope. But once you know the slope, that's going here. And b is the y-intercept. So remember we talked about, in a few videos ago, we talked about the intercept as where it crosses the y-axis. That's what this number is. That tells us where it's going to cross the y-axis. So keeping this formula in mind, you may want to write this down. We are going to use, or I guess this equation in mind, we're going to use this equation a lot today. So let's start with what happens when you are given the equation. You want to find the slope and the y-intercept. So the slope is y equals, remember this is y equals mx plus b. So m would be here and b will be there. So the m is 1/4. So when asked to state the slope of this line is 1/4. Now be careful with the b. A lot of people say it's 6. It's not 6. Because if you remember your equation was y equals mx plus b. Well, in this particular equation, you'll notice it's minus 6. So it's the same as plus negative 6, which means that the b is negative 6. Okay, so the y-intercept is at negative 6. The slope of this line is 1/4. Now, what happens when you are given an equation that is not currently in slope-intercept? We want to try to find that. What we need to do is get this so that we isolate the y, right? We want it to be y equals mx plus b. We're trying to get it to look something like this. So in order to do that, we are going to add 4x to both sides. Okay, when I add 4x to both sides, this will cancel out. I'm left with y equals, and I'm going to put the 4x in front of the 2. So you could have written it as 2 plus 4x, but I'm not going to write it as 2 plus 4x because, again, I want it to look like this. So now I actually am in the proper form, y equals mx plus b. So when I want to see my m and my b. So the slope of this line is actually positive 4, even though many people will guess negative 4 when you're up here at the beginning of the problem. You have to work it so that it's actually in the proper form. And then the b, the y-intercept, is positive 2. All right, so there's another way that you might see a problem. And then finally, how can we use this to actually create a graph? So I've got a equation on the bottom here, y equals negative 2x plus 3. So remember, I'm looking at y equals mx plus b. Here's my m, and there is my b. So the m, right, and I'll write it up here, the slope of this line is negative 2/3, and the b, as you can see, is 3. So I'm going to start by putting a point at the y-intercept of 3. Remember, we talked about the idea of the x value. X is always 0 at the y-intercept. So if the y-intercept is 3, it's going to be at 0, 3. That's 1, 2, 3. That would be right here. Okay, and then I'm going to use this to find my next point. And so you remember that we talked about this being the idea of rise over run. So I'm going to rise over run, and this is negative 2/3. I'm going to put the negative. Remember, the negative can actually go either with the 2 or the 3. It can't go with both, because if both are negative, it actually is a positive number. And it needs to be negative 2/3. But I can make either the 2 negative or the 3 negative. Typically, I make the y value negative and I leave the x as a positive. That's just something that I do. You don't have to do that. Okay, but to me, it's just easier for me to always worry about going up or down, and then I'm always moving to the right. So negative 2, I'm going down 2. That's 1. So I'm starting at this point that I just created. I'm going down 2. That's 1, 2 to here. Okay, and then I'm running 3. So I went down negative 2. So rise of -2, and I'm going to run 3. So it's down 2, run 3, that puts me here. That's my second point. If I wanted to create another point, I could actually do that. I would go down 2 from here, and then run 3 more, and that would get me to there. You don't necessarily have to do that. I also want you to see that the other thing I could have done is gone to -3, which means I would rise 2, but then I would run -3, that would put me here, which would also be part of this line. So now you can see I have a bunch of dots that I can connect, and so this is my line for this equation. Y equals -2/3 x plus 3, that would be the graph of the equation. All right, that's all we got for you on slope-intercept form. Please make sure that you have written down in your notes the y equals mx plus b, what each of those variables stands for. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to do the problems on the bottom of the page. I'll see you in class.